Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me. Look, it's the night before your debut EP release. How are you feeling?
I feel incredibly excited. I'm I think I spent so long not releasing music, uh, that I'm just so like that is like just even that in itself is such a big thing for me. So I feel very relieved and proud and just like super stoked that it's just like, oh, amazing. Like this is fine, like, it's finally a thing. Like I have an EP out. That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
So
that's so exciting. Do you have any big
yeah.
celebrations planned for like tonight or tomorrow?
Absolutely not. No, I might go get myself a nice dinner or something, but I don't think so. No, I think I'm just gonna I don't have I feel like I'm actually quite bad at that. I probably should celebrate things a little more. But I kind of I don't know. I think they're partly being introverted. Like I'm just like, oh, I don't really want to do like some big gathering centered around me. Like that sounds quite scary. Or anything like that. I just, so I think I might just like take the night off or something and be like, hey, this is cool.
Yeah, I get that. I guess in a way it would feel like, that unwanted attention when it's your birthday and everyone's standing around you, kind of the same when you're releasing an EP as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely that feeling where I'm like, I definitely I don't need that. That will require too much energy.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, it's been a while since you released music, and look, we're already in
Mm.
May and you've gone out with a bang this year. You've released three singles, you've got the EP coming up. So why is now the right time to get back into releasing?
Um, I I actually don't think it had anything to do with a particular time or anything like that. It just felt like um uh a, a a point to kind of give myself the chance to recalibrate my creativity. So I never had any like expectations externally for me to release music, like Sakr the artist. Um, so there was there was a lot of time for me to like explore the music and really get into it, and figure out what I'm trying to do with it. And a big part of that was actually just me trying to find my creative voice again because I felt like I had misplaced it a little bit. Um, and once I sort of got it to a particular point with these songs, they almost felt like they were speaking to me, and I felt this like incredible sense of like, oh, I found this thing that I felt like I had like I had misplaced for so long. And then at that point there, that was when it was like, hey, and I spoke to my team. I'd be like, I think it's time to kind of move forward with these like songs and do the thing. And I'm an incredibly big believer that like art is never finished, it's abandoned. So it's kind of like these songs and tracks and like little universes are speaking to me now. They're doing the thing. So now it's like, how do we put it out into the world and what should it be and whatnot. So yeah, there was never it didn't feel like I didn't have to like work towards a particular time or release in the winter or release in the summer or anything like that. It was more just like when it felt ready.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I love your take on, art is never finished, it's abandoned. That's a really interesting intake, and I see where you're coming from as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can constantly tweak. You can constantly kind of be like, oh, now it can move over here. And it's like and and it's kind of like a result of sort of the things we have access to today. It's like you can kind of constantly edit, delete, re-record, da 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 da. And yeah, I think there's just like there's something to say about songs just being like captured in time, in that moment, in that thing, and being like, hey, it's doing the thing, and then accepting that that is the song. Um, so yeah, at that point there you go, thank you for being that song, and you move on.
Yeah, and it's great because like the work that you're putting out there, the songs are great. And looking at your last single, All I Am, can you tell us a bit about the inspiration and what inspired that track?
Yeah, so I had always felt like well, I'll give you like two different, like, well, from a sonic point of view, um, I really wanted to test myself in a way of kind of, so I'm a drummer by like, that was the instrument I sort of grew up playing and know how to play, I guess. Um, and I really wanted to write a song that had no drums and used my voice quite a lot. Both things completely terrifying. Um, so I was like, it was kind of like a creative challenge to be like, how am I going to approach this, and how does it feel if Sakr writes a song that doesn't have drums and is quite vocal heavy? Uh, so that was the sort of spot, and I was feeling quite, um, like I low and like a little bit, I was questioning a lot about myself, um, and the relationships I have within my life. And like that's relationships with creativity, relationship with family, like a broad scope of like relationships in my life, and how there are parts of me that I bring into that are like that I can recognize are incredibly hard to navigate for the other person, let alone like myself. I know I can't navigate it and I'm losing my mind, but it's also hard for the other person. Um, and I think a big part of that is recognizing that part of you and then being able to communicate that part of you to another person. So like they are aware that, hey, I have this sort of reaction to a certain thing, or I'm geared this way or whatnot. And then being able to communicate that to the other person so that they're not caught off guard, and they can hopefully take that on board and be like, okay, cool, this part of Sam is a little bit sensitive, or a little bit like doesn't see this so well, or you know what I mean. um and I felt like All I Am was kind of like the output of that feeling, kind of like the last line of the song is like, this is all I am. Like, I know it's hard. It's kind of just like solidifying, like, I'm I've worked really hard to be aware of who I am and my good parts and bad parts. um but it's, yeah, and like one of those major things is I'm really bad at communication. Like I really shut down when things go bad. Like I don't know how to communicate what I'm feeling, particularly in the moment. um so yeah, it's a song based on that sort of concept of things.
Yeah, you've explained it really well. Thanks so much for sharing that. And when you mentioned that, you find it hard to communicate, do you find that when you put it into a song, is that a way, does that help you communicate with others
Oh,
creative way?
yeah, absolutely. Like it's I've mentioned it a couple of times to people. It's like creativity has always been and will always be my best form of communication. Like I feel like music is how you would get to know me more than me talking. If that makes sense. Yeah, it's the place that I feel at most home. You know what I mean? Like kind of like sitting there in like this like room of sound waves and things going. It's like it's just the most comfortable spot for me. And it feels like when I have an emotion, that's where I need to be. And that's where I need to, it's like a diary. It's like where I need to write it down. So at, to some point, put this like degree of separation between me and that feeling so I can get on with my existing in the world, you know?
Yeah, and is that a similar theme that will be explored in the EP, or what can people expect from this bigger piece of work?
Yeah, so the EP as a whole is definitely like an exploration type EP of myself. And I guess like my hope is um the EP was such a mirror for me. So like I just found so much of me in those songs that I didn't even know were there. And I was like, it was this like, really like beautiful thing of like not only like finding my creativity again and my voice, but also finding these new parts. And I guess my hope is that when people are listening through the EP, that they can enjoy the songs on like a surface level, But when like going down deep into like the feeling of the songs and like the textural elements and getting lost in it, I hope that people can find parts of themselves, good or bad, and just recognize them and, you know, look after them or embrace them, whichever may needed be needed.
And that's such an important message too, in a great way. Like you mentioned, it helps you communicate and it helps people connect. So it
Yeah.
sounds like it's a real, yes, shared experience between yourself and the listeners.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big believer in music being immersive. You know what I mean? It should feel like you are in collaboration with what you're listening to. And yeah, yeah, I definitely hope people get that from the songs in the EP.
Yeah, and you're big on the production side as well. And you gave me a bit of a tour before of your setup. So can you just walk us through, I guess, your creative process from when you have an idea to then how you like produce it, record it, how's it
Yeah.
formed?
Yeah, so I'm definitely like more of a producer than I am like a singer or like in like the uh the normal form of how you would say an artist, if that makes sense. Like I wouldn't, I'm a producer artist. So it's definitely my main thing. Um, the process definitely changes, idea to idea. It often starts with not actually opening like Ableton, which is the door that I use. I'll turn on all my synths and gear around, and then I'll essentially just sort of uh start making sounds across different things and like start looping sort of things and sequencing things. And I liken that to how like a painter will get like a big board and then put all their like different mediums and different colors on like this like on the thing and then go, cool, here's what I'm working with. And then they move to the canvas. It's a bit like that. So I like turn on all these, like I have all these boxes in front of me and I've got like a synth here and a big modular system and effects and whatnot. And then I go and I just start like making something. And um so I'm a big believer in something that there's a incredible person who talks about creativity called Elizabeth Gilbert. And she has this book called Big Magic. And a really good like TED talk. And she talks about this thing called your like your little creative genius, which essentially means that like way back in like Roman times or whatever, creatives and people who knew creatives believed that they had like a being in the walls with them that helped them make what they do. And it's quite beautiful because what it did was is it removes the ego and it also helps when you fail because you're like, oh, I did really well. It's like, okay, great. Well, it wasn't all me. I work with this like creative little fairy with me. And oh, you did really bad. It's like, oh well, the creative little fairy wasn't helping me that day. It just like really helps me keep like helps my mental health with like creativity because it is hard thing to do to write songs and pull things out of thin air every day. Um, so I sit down in the studio, I do that thing, and I kind of collaborate with inspiration, and I go, okay, this feels good today. I don't know why, but it does. And then I go next step, next step, next step. Uh, and then I once I have something that I'm like, this feels really good, I feed that into Ableton, and then I start uh I guess like putting stuff on the canvas, and then if you can imagine sort of like getting a saw and then cutting the canvas into all these little blocks. And then I go, okay, cool. What does it sound like if the canvas is split up this way? And I go, okay, that's interesting. And what if it's like this way? I go, that's less interesting. Let's go back to this one. And then there I break down the canvas again. I feed everything through everything again. Like I'll go into the modular system, that canvas gets like shredded through there and then back into Ableton. And then I kind of just recycle and push sounds as far as I can, you know. That is the general process. And then once I have like a sort of formed idea that I'm like, this is speaking to me, this is saying something to me, this is saying the thing I wanted to say, or this is telling me what I want to say, I then will kind of maybe look at like throwing in some vocals if I feel like it needs it and lyrics.
Yeah, it sounds like an incredible process, but also like a big process as well. So you must feel really relieved to have this, EP of works that you can now, put out there and then, start making
Yeah.
more stuff, I guess.
100%. I feel like, I mean, process is the only thing I can control. You know what I mean? So I kind of I have to keep that as beautiful and as fun and as inspiring as possible. And it's definitely the long way around, the way I do it. It's definitely also the very expensive way around, but it's 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 what I can control, and that it does bring me a lot of joy and inspiration. So it's kind of like that's just how I do it, you know. I know some incredible creatives that can work purely just out of Ableton. Um, and that's incredible. And I wish I could do that sometimes, but
Yeah.
I just it doesn't work for me.
And finding that joy and inspiration is definitely the main thing. And like you moved from Sydney to London. Did you find that that helped with the inspiration? Like, did you move for music or was that like a personal choice?
Yeah, I moved to music. Uh, but I have my management is based out of here, and the Netherlands. So like this side of the world. Uh, I I've always been drawn to this side of the world. I just think that like a lot of the music I listen to, a lot of what I'm inspired by is always just on this side of the world. So I think from, for about maybe like 10 or 12 years, I've always wanted to move to London. So when I was like, old enough and a responsible adult to do so, well, I felt like I sort of did. Um, and yeah, so far I've really, really loved it, and I've felt super inspired here. There's something about like I don't know, the air. It's like it doesn't make sense because you kind of walk around and everyone's kind of angry and a little bit busy, and it's all a bit very fast paced. But then there's just these little pockets of like history or just this feeling of opportunity that I just love here. So yeah.
And speaking of the opportunity, do you have any like live upcoming shows that you want to like plug or promote? How can people come out and see you?
I haven't got any live shows at the moment. I just came off a live show thing, which was awesome, but it's definitely a big talking point with the team now to do more live stuff. Um, but currently there's no shows locked in or anything like that. But there will be coming into the next few months.
And on an international level, like being in Australia, obviously listening to your music helps. What are some ways that people back in Australia can still support you if they can't, make it out to your shows?
Yeah, I think it's, obviously listening to the music. I obviously then sharing it out as much as you can. That always helps. But I honestly would love to talk to people. You know what I mean? I'd like reach out, message me. I would love to know what like the songs have said to people, how they've experienced them. Um, it's interesting because I wrote the songs being like these feel like very like headphones on the bus songs. And then everyone I've shown, they're like, this would be amazing at a festival. And I'm like, what? Like it was just like completely out of the blue. So I just love to know how people are experiencing the songs for sure. But yeah, in terms of like supporting me, helping my social media grow, which I'm incredibly bad at, and just sharing the music would be incredible. But even just hearing from someone is incredibly supportive to know that their song has influenced them in some way or inspired them in some way is amazing.
And those different takes are so unique as well. Like just hearing someone being like, look, headphones on the bus as opposed to like going out clubbing, they're very different environments. So it's
I
like your
know.
music obviously universal enough that, no matter what situation you're in, people want to listen to it.
Yeah. I mean that it I hope so. I mean that's amazing if it is, but I was just like it definitely caught me off guard because it was like the most common answer. Whereas like when I was making it, I was like, this is like perfect for the rainy day on the bus. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just anyway, it's been a funny experience seeing how people actually take the music themselves, which is amazing. Like I'm like, I'm glad that they feel like it fits in a festival. Playing a festival would be so much fun.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
lastly, I'll be interested to hear like what are some albums, artists, music that inspires you and your sound?
Yeah, yeah. So I the first person that sort of comes to mind is James Blake. Like particularly his like first sort of bunch of work. I remember I was in high school and I was playing like hardcore screamo drums in like bands and stuff. And then I got shown this song called CMYK by James Blake, and it was the most I had never heard anything like it. I liken it to like imagine having water for the first time. Like just this thing that feels it's like everything your body needs. You know what I mean? It's like I need this to survive. It felt a bit like that. And then yeah, that really like pushed me into the direction of like what is this? What is electronic music? What is production? And that song really changed my life. So definitely James Blake. There's an artist called Caterina Barbieri. I think that's how you say the last name. She's an Italian like ambient modular artist. Uh, and she's just really, really incredible. And somehow her melodies and her use of repetition is amazing. And I found that super inspiring. Um, there's another artist called Rival Consoles, who is uh like something about Rival Consoles sound design, and like structures and the the harmonic movement of his music is really, 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 really good. And I don't know, it's something about their music that really like hits me. So I listen to a lot of that. So that's the kind of the stuff that I feel like over mono as well. I don't know if you know over mono, but they're
Oh,
kind of
but I have to
like
check them out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're just like their drum production is really, really cool, and they're also incredible at melodies and just like really have figured out how to like bridge a lot of electronic genres and kind of throw them into one. Um, so that's kind of like what's inspired me as an electronic music producer. Uh, but I think like a huge part of it still as a whole would definitely be like growing up listening to like hardcore music and like bands like Enter Shikari, Alexis on Fire, Under Oath, all these like heavier bands that kind of do this heavy music, but a lot of them make like pop songs in disguise. Um, really, really have like inspired me, like kind of growing up through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I'll definitely have
Long-winded
to.
answer for like what's a couple of things that inspired you, but there you go.
No, it's good because like now I've got new artists that and music that I can go back and yeah, check out because some
Yeah.
of them I haven't heard of,
Yeah.
so I'll definitely have to look them up.
You should definitely do it. They're really, really good.
Yeah, so that's all my questions. Did you have any other comments that you want people to know about yourself or this upcoming EP?
No, I honestly, I would just love to hear from people who listen to it and what they think of it. Other than that, I feel like all those questions are really great. Thank you so much.
No worries, and thanks so much for your time. And I'm really excited for everyone else to, hear the EP tomorrow as well.
Cool. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you.